Hello crochet friends, and welcome to another video. In today's tutorial we are going to make this little friend right here, which I am calling the Floofy Bat. This is a great introductory project to using a fur type of yarn, which is what we are using for the body of our little bat friend, and then we're using a blanket yarn for the wings and ears. His little twofers are made out of craft felt that I just cut into triangles and used a fabric glue to adhere to his body, and we have some safety eyes to round out his look. You could use felt eyes instead. I just happened to have these safety eyes on hand and they were the perfect size for the project. So for today's project, I do believe we're going to make him out of a brown yarn, just because I think it'll be easier for us to see on a video tutorial versus the black. It's just kind of hard for us to see the stitches. So let's go gather our materials and get started.
For this project, you will need approximately 10 yards of Lion brand Go for Faux fur yarn or a similar gauge of fur yarn, approximately 10 yards of blanket yarn in a coordinating color, an 8mm crochet hook, a 6.5mm crochet hook, polyfill stuffing or the stuffing material of your choice, 12mm safety eyes or felt eyes, white craft felt for fangs, scissors, sewing needles, and stitch markers.
To get started, grab your fur yarn and your 8mm crochet hook. The fur yarn we are using today is the Lion brand Go Faux It, and this one is a sparkle, which I picked up on clearance sale for like $1.75 per skein. And let's get started. So what we're going to do to begin our little bat body is we are going to form a magic circle using our fur yarn. And you could use a different brand of fur yarn, just as long as it is the same gauge, this should work out. Fur yarns can really vary in their gauge based on the brand. So as long as it is comparable to this gauge, I think you'll be okay. So now we've got our magic circle, and we are going to place 6 single crochet into our magic circle for round 1. Okay, so we have round 1 completed here, but now we're going to run into an issue, and that is, where are our stitches and what is happening now? So for my first tip is we're going to feel our stitches to keep track of what's going on. We're going to feel this one right here is the first stitch off of our hook. We go back, that's stitch 2. Keep going to another one, sliding our fingers over the bump where the stitches are joined into the gap, and you can feel here I can stick my finger through. Okay, so that's our 1, 2, 3 stitches. 4, keep sliding. 5, slide back one more. 6, and I'm going to shove my hook in that 6th stitch. And now I'm going to tighten that magic ring a bit, and I'm not going to tie it off yet. We're just going to go a little bit further before I tie a knot in it. I'm just going to kind of tighten that up like this, and then we're going to place a stitch marker in the 6th stitch, the last one on our hook. I have our stitch marker. I'm going to take the bump end and hold that in my hand and take the flatter end and put it through the stitch. And I'm finding the first stitch off of my hook right here, and I'm going to place that stitch marker through it. Okay, so now we have our 6th stitch marked, and we've got our hook inside of stitch number 1, and we're ready to proceed. For this round, we are going to do an increase in every single stitch. and I will talk you through how I typically get through my rounds And this is why I said this is a good introductory project, because we've only got one increase and one decrease round. So we've got our hook already in stitch number 1. We're just going to yarn over or under, your call, and then finish that stitch. And I've got my finger right here, that the one that I use to hold my work, I have it in holding the stitch that I am going into right now, so I can feel where my hook needs to go. And I'm going to take my hook and put it right in there where I've got my fingers holding, and I'm going to grab my yarn and pull it through and then do a second stitch. So now I have my 2 stitches in that first stitch, and my fingers are still at the base of this stitch. And what I'm going to do is slide my fingers over here and feel for the next stitch here. You can feel there's the bump of where the 2 stitches are joined, and then here's where my next stitch is, and I'm going to stick my hook in that gap, and I'm going to do an increase. And now I'm going to do the same thing for my next stitch. Just slide my fingers over and find where I can put my fingers, and I can feel the 2 loops at the top of this stitch. And I'm going to do that same thing again. And I'm going to do that for all 6 of my stitches. And every time I get done with my increase, I'm just going to slide this hand over and find that next stitch, and then place another. Sliding over, finding that opening, and then sticking my hook through the opening. And then now we're back to our 6th stitch, so I'm going to remove our marker. And I kept my fingers around that opening where I had the stitch marker, so I didn't lose my place. And there, now we've got all 12 stitches of round 2 complete. And what we're going to do here is I've got it through the 2 loops of our 12th stitch. And then what I'm going to do with the stitch marker is, with it open, I'm going to go down this way, and instead of marking it over the top, I'm going to mark it around the side here of this stitch. And this way it's going to keep my place around the side of the round, and this will make sense in a little while. Okay, so we've got our increase round completed, and now I'm going to go ahead and tie off our magic circle, just to make sure, because this fur yarn does loosen up and slide. So I've just got a little knot there to help prevent our magic ring from coming undone. And now we are ready to proceed with our next round. And again, as you can see, it's really hard to tell where these stitches are. So we're going to be feeling for our stitches every single time. And what we're going to do now is repeat the same round for 6 rounds. So we're going to do 6 rounds of just a single crochet in every single stitch all the way around, nice and simple. And we're just going to feel our way through this. So we've got our stitch here that we can feel the base of, and then I can feel the next stitch is there. So I'm just going to go in there and do a single crochet, slide over, feel that next stitch. That's 2. And what I do, I count every single round. That's 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if you find that your count is off as you're going through that round, then you realize that you've made a mistake somewhere, because you had 12 on the previous round. So undo that round and try again. So 7, 8, 9. That's in this one. Yeah, that's 10. 10. 11 and 12. Now on 12 here, we've made it back over our other stitch, turn my work the correct side out. And you can see here the stitch marker wrapped around the side of our stitch, and we're just going to find that next stitch over it. So you can see here we're feeling in the stitch, and I can feel it should be right over the top of the stitch marker. And we're just going to go in there, and that's our 12th stitch over top of our stitch marker. And now this has been one round. It's a lot easier to see this when you're not using a fur yarn, when you're just using a blanket yarn. But here, that has been one round, and you can count by feeling your rounds to count how many rounds you had rather than move your stitch marker every time. So we've got one round in the books there. Round 3 is in the dust, and we're just going to keep going, placing a single crochet in every single one of our stitches, feeling around to make sure that we are in the right place, and counting every time so that you know you've got all 12 stitches. And I'm going to keep going here, and I will meet you back once we've done 6 rounds of single crochet, or at the end of round 8. All right, crochet friends, we are back. We are at the end of round 8. We've got all of our single crochet rounds completed. I'm going to move my stitch marker up here to this stitch, and I'm just going to secure it in place for this moment because it's time for us to add some eyes to our bat friend. And then after that, we're going to stuff our bat friend a bit, and then we're going to move on to our final 2 rounds of the project. So for the eyes, you can just pick a side here. I'm just going to go with the other side. This is the side that we just ended on. I'm just going to go for this side. I mean, it's up to you. There's no right or wrong way for this. So for the placement on the sides, rather. So we've got our first round here, our second round here, and then this is our 3rd round. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. So what we're going to do is take our eyes, these are a 12mm safety eye, and we are going to place that into round 3. If you want to place them down a little further, you could place them in round 4, but this is what it looks like typically in about round 3. You could place them higher or lower if you want to. I'm just trying to get them right about where the head is going to level out in its size. So we've got this through a stitch here, and we're going to place a little washer on it. I always glue my washers in place on the back side just to make sure that the eye is not going to pop through the stitches, because these stitches, this eye could easily pop through the stitches depending on your placement. So I'm going to glue the little back onto my eye right now. I'm going to open this up to the back side here, and then place my little washer on this with the glue on there, and then tighten it down, and then pop it back around like that. And now we've got our little first eye in place. And then for the second one, we're going to go over 2 to 3 stitches. You want to have enough room to be able to get your 2 little fangs between there without them, completely touching the eyeballs. So like we have this guy here, I've got his 2 little fangs, his twofers, between the 2 eyes, like this. So we'll just place our second eye in place, and I'm going to glue this on the same way I did the first one. We have both of our eyes secured in place, and now we're going to add some stuffing. And I'm going to take like a small amount here and place it inside, and I'm going to first start by kind of putting this between the eyes, between the sticks, the inside stalks of the 2 safety eyes. Just to kind of, get those in place. And then I'm going to take a little bit more stuffing and kind of place that down around the back of that area to fill out the top of the head like this. And then I'm going to do that and just stuff more like this. And we're going to add a little bit more stuffing right before we close him up, just to make sure that we have the correct amount in place. And now we're ready to proceed with round 9. If you hear a little clinking and crunching in the background, that is my cat, who has decided he has to eat his kibble right now while we're filming. Okay, so I'm filling my stitches to find where that next stitch starts, and we are going to do a decrease round now, and this is going to be the more challenging round for you, and this is where we're going to have options. Traditionally, when I am doing amigurumi, I like to do an invisible decrease, which is to go through the front loops only of your stitches. You may find this hard to do while working with fur yarn. If for some reason you're unable to do your decrease that way and not able to find just the front loop and go through that only, because it can be a challenge. Here I am through just the front loop. Here I'm through both loops. Now, if you feel that you cannot manage that, you can do what I will call single crochet 2 together rather than an invisible decrease. And you can do that one by putting your hook into the stitch, getting your yarn, pulling through, and then going into the next stitch, getting your yarn, pulling through, and then yarning over and pulling through to complete the stitch, and that will pull the 2 stitches together. So I recommend, if you're having trouble seeing the stitches, to do a traditional invisible decrease, that you use the single crochet 2 together, because that will be easier for you to handle. I am going to attempt to do an invisible decrease with mine. So I'm going to go through the front loops of that stitch and then feel just to make sure for the front loops of this next stitch. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those loops, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2. Okay. And now I'm going to go to this next stitch. And if you find that you are having trouble finding your stitches, which one's which, with your decreases, I recommend moving your fingers to the next stitch and holding that in place so that you don't lose it, if you follow me. So what we're going to do, I'll show you what I mean. We're going to do another decrease. So I am going to go through just the front loop, which I know I can, it's just sliding, there we go. And then I'm moving my fingers to the next stitch to feel and go through the front loops of that, and then I'm going to move my fingers to the 3rd stitch here and just hold that, and now I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through these 2 loops. And now I'm not losing track of where my stitch is and getting confused by my working yarn. Okay, so we're going to keep going and decrease 6 total times until we reach back our stitch marker, and I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, we're back to the final decrease stitch here, and I'm going to finish up my last decrease just like that. And now we should have just 6 stitches here, and we're going to pull a loop over through that stitch right there, and then just cut our yarn, and then bam, that's the end. So we're going to stuff a little bit more here before we sew our bat closed. I'm just going to take a little bit more of our polyfill in small amounts and kind of work it into our bat friend's body. All right, my friends, we are done with stuffing. He's got the right amount of stuffing inside of his cute little floofy body here. And we are ready to proceed. It's just so soft and fuzzy. Okay, so stop petting the bat. I've got my yarn needle right here, and this is a big sized yarn needle to make sure I can fit this fur yarn through the eye. And if we analyze the back of it here, you can see it's basically just like a strip of faux fur. So I'm gonna kind of find the end of that and feed that through the eye, because just pulling on the fluff won't really get it. And now we're going to try to close our magic circle, which is we're going to go through here and try to go through just I'm like, literally just got fur. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. We're gonna go through here and find the stitches and try to go through the front loops of the stitches only. But if if you can't and you just go through everything, it's fine. And we're just gonna go through and find a stitch and then get our yarn through here. And go through every one of our stitches. And then I'm just gonna gently pull, and then I'm gonna work the fur yarn through here with both hands. And I think that's as tight as it's gonna be. Now I'm just kind of giving it the double squish for equilibrium, make sure that the stuffing's all equaled out. All right, so we've got our ring closed, and what I'm gonna do here is go back through the body and then out the other side like this, just to make sure. We'll like pull the fluff, and you can go around the whole guy and kind of pull the fluff like this and give him a light brushing to make him look equally fluffy, and you won't be able to see the stitches as much. So we're out on this side. I'm gonna go back through the body and come out on this other side too, like that. And I was gonna do it one more time, but my yarn decided to pop off my needle, and that's fine. This is real life. Accidents happen. We don't edit out our mistakes, man. Okay, here we go. Just gonna give that another tug, give him another floofing, and now I'm just gonna cut the fur yarn and trying hard not to cut the other floof around it. All right. We have our cute little friend right here ready to go. And he's squeezing and futzing with his little body. All right, so now that he's finished, I'm gonna go ahead while I have my adhesive handy and put his little twofers in. I'm gonna give him two little teeth right here. And to do this, I have just some craft felt that I've cut into little triangles. And I use heat and bond as the little adhesive backing on my felt, not because I'm planning on using that to adhere it, but because it makes the felt hold together nicely for cutting these little felt pieces for your details on amigurumi. Sometimes, especially when you're cutting smaller details like this, the felt can fray and it won't hold its little shapes. So that can be a way to make it a little easier for yourself. And I'm going to clear a little spot for where I want his teeth to be and trim the fur just a little bit in the place where his teeth are, just so that it sticks a little bit better. And you don't want to do very much. We just want to get a little bit in here so that we can get to a kind of flat spot to get our tooth. And now that I've got my spot cleared away, I've got a little bit of adhesive handy and dab that on my twofer, my little twofers. And just kind of place that in place and then squish it. And that's one little tooth down. Now I'm going to get some glue on our second tooth. And now we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of line it up and make sure that it's about the same distance from my eye as my other little toothy tooth is. And then push it down in place. And there's a little bit of adhesive right there. So we're just going to kind of do that. No one will know. Shh, you don't tell anyone, I won't. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to set this part aside for him to dry, and then we're going to go back and do his little wings and ears, and then we'll move on to assembly. All right, friends, let's give our little bat friend some wings and ears. We're going to start with the wings. To do this, grab your blanket yarn in the complementary color you've chosen to go with your fur yarn and a 6.5mm crochet hook. For this bat, I have chosen Premier Basics Chenille in this brown color, which is caramel. To start, place your blanket yarn with a slip knot onto your 6.5mm crochet hook, and I'm going to chain 9. All right, so we've got our 9 chains here. In the second chain from the hook, which is this one right here, we are going to start and place a single crochet in the 8 remaining chains. So I work into the back bumps of my chains. So instead of working into the side loops here, I'm going to flip over my work and then work into the little back bump on the back of the stitch. You can do whatever you find to be the best method to work into a chain for you. This just happens to be the way I work into all of my chains. I think it gives a nice finish because it leaves you 2 loops on either side of your work. And the last one sometimes is harder to get into. Oh. Okay. So we have our 8 single crochet here. We're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to make 6 single crochet. And now we've got our final 2 stitches on this end here. We are going to do a decrease. So I'm going to do an invisible decrease and just go through the front loops there. Give her a little stretch to make sure that it lays the way I want it to. Now we're going to chain 1, turn, and then we're going to do another decrease. So I'm going to go just through those front loops, pull through there, and then yarn over and pull through to complete my stitch. And then I'm going to single crochet to the end of the row here, which should be 5. I'm going to chain 1. Come on, yarn. Chain 1 and turn our work again, and then we're going to single crochet 4, and then we're going to decrease, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to decrease, and then single crochet 3 to the end of our row. Come on, yarn. Alright, and this is what we are left with, which is our finished wing. So to finish off, I'm going to yarn over and pull through this loop, cut off my yarn with enough to just sew this on, and then we're going to pull that through the loop and tighten it down. And there we have our first little bat wing. We're going to make another wing exactly the same as this one, and then I'll meet you back here and we will make our ears. Both of our wings are completed here, and now we are ready to move on to the final 2 little bits, and that is going to be our ears. So we've got our same brown yarn here, and I'm going to form a slip knot, place the loop on my hook, tighten it to the correct size, and we are going to chain 3. Alright, and then working into the second chain from the hook, I am going to single crochet, and then we're going to half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over and then go into our yarn over, pull through all those loops on the hook there. And now I'm going to yarn over and pull a loop up, and then I'm going to cut my yarn and pull that through. And we're done. That is our little bat ear. So we're going to make another, and since it's so fast, we're just going to make both of them right here together. In case that was too quick for you to get, we're going to do one more, okay? So we've got our loop on our hook here with our slip knot ready to crochet. We're going to chain 3. That's 1, 2, and then chaining 3. I'm pulling on my yarn, which is being really freaking difficult right now. So we've got our chain 3. In the second chain from the hook, I'm going to place a single crochet. And again, I'm working in the back bumps. You work in whatever part of this chain makes you feel comfortable and good about yourself, okay? So we're doing just a single crochet in that first little place, and in our last chain, so that was the second chain from the hook. In the final chain, we're going to half double crochet. I'm yarning over, going into the stitch, yarning over and pulling through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Then I'm pulling up a loop through my work there, and I'm just going to cut my yarn and pull through and then tighten down. And there we go. We've got 2 little bat ears and 2 little bat wings, and we've got a little bat body. And guess what it's time to do? Everyone's favorite thing, sew. So I'm going to grab my sewing needle and then we'll get started. All right, my friends, it's time to assemble our bat. We're so close to being done. In order to help aid us to place our wings in the same spot on either side, I'm going to grab my little crochet hook here. This is just a 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. I'm going to find the center axis of my bat. I'm going to go in from the side here and check that it's level, and then line it up with the eyeballs here, and that is crooked. So we're going to go for a second pass here. I'm going to line it up for the eyes. There we go. Checking the gap about a finger off on either side from the eyeball. Checking from the top to make sure that this is lined up. And it doesn't matter if it's kind of going like this a little bit, as long as you're lined up here on your body and the distance away from your eyeballs is correct. Because this is where we're going to sew our wing, is we're going to sew it kind of from parallel with this eye down to here. We're going to move our little ears out of the way, and we're going to grab a wing and then get this tail and we're going to thread that up on our sewing needle, and then we are going to sew this bad boy on. Now my tail ends up on the bottom side of the wing here. What we're going to do is I'm going to like drape this short tail kind of over the top, just like that. And then we're going to sew it in this position here. Okay, and we can see our little bat guy next to us as our visual reference that we can tell where our wing should go. Okay, now I'm going to hold this to there, and then I'm going to take this tail. We're going to go into the side of our little bat's body and then up through the side of a stitch. And it might be a little difficult to pull the doubled over part of the blanket yarn through, just as a warning. You may have to give it a little bit of a tug at the beginning to get it to go through. And then I'm going to just go through the side of the stitch here like that. Kind of pull that mostly tight, go back into our body, come back up here. And then we're going to go through the side of this wing, back into our little bat friend's body. And I think you are understanding the flow of operations of what we're doing here. Going through this, going back down, coming back up. This is how we sew the bat. Try to hold this in place. Again, I have a very chaotic sewing method, and unfortunately when I'm not on camera it does lend to this thing flipping and flopping all over the place, so I have to really try to not do that when I'm filming so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Alright, so what I've done now is I've come up at the edge of my wing where I've got it sewn, and I'm gonna just go through these two loops of that first stitch, if you can see there. And then I'm gonna go back into the body here, and then just come back up over here on the back side, right next to the wing, okay? Like this. Here we are, right next to the body of the, right next to the wing, sorry. And then I'm going to go through just a little loop of one of the stitches there. And we're going to tie that in a little knot as closely to the wing as possible. And then I'm going to go kind of directly down, again, to keep this as close to the wing as possible, and come out through just a random spot over here, and try not to grab the floof when I'm pulling this. Like that. Okay. And now what I'm gonna do is cut this with like an inch or two remaining there. Not a whole lot, just enough that I can pull it into the body. And then what we're gonna do is use a crochet hook to pull this back into our bat's body to hide that tail. And we're going to do a similar thing here with the second tail from our wing, is we're going to thread that up on our sewing needle and do kind of similarly to what we just did for our other tail, and go right next to the wing here, and then just kind of out over here in the middle of the back of the body. This is me trying to grab this needle. Oh my gosh, sorry guys, it's not that difficult. I have arthritis and a connective tissue disorder, and I struggle to grasp and pull on things. You're not going to have as many problems as I do, unless you have the same problems as me, in which case I'm really sorry. Alrighty, so we can see here our first wing is done, just like our other bat friend. And I kind of pushed that crochet hook out of the way a little bit just so that I could get my stitches in here. It was hard to do with the hook in the way. And I'm leaving it in place so that I can go over to this side, and then I'm going to sew our second wing on the same way we did for our first. And I'll meet you back here to do the ears. Alright, crochet friends, we're so close to the finish line here. We have our finished wings and we still have our tails here to worry about. Don't worry about it right now though. We're just going to let them hang out. They're not going anywhere. We'll deal with them because we're just going to have more to deal with right after we're done sewing this. So why do those and then come back and do it again? We're just going to pull all those tails in at once. So we've got 2 little ears to sew onto our bat friend. And if we look at this guy here, what I tried to do is take his little eye and go here, and we're going to go like a finger width apart to try to line up his little ears kind of over his eyes, kind of at a slight angle like this, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is just turn the bat up to the top, and we know that we've already lined our little wings up to try to be on center, and we're going to try to see where center of the top of this guy is, and then off kilter a little bit, and then turn it like this, and you should have about a finger width of space where you're placing this ear between the ear and the wing. And then when we've got the second ear on top, we're going to have about a finger width of space between those, and then the same thing over here, a finger width of space before the side of our second ear. Alright, so we know how we want the ear to sit on top of our bat. Now what we're going to do is actually attach it. We're going to take that longer tail, go back on top here, kind of, what I like to do is use the smaller tail to kind of hold it in place as to where I want, and then go into the body, and then up kind of in the center there. Make sure you grab the wing like that. It's part of the process. We're going to go through this little stitch there just to kind of make sure that we're sewing our ear to the body efficiently. And then I'm going to go back in and then back up on the other side of the ear right over here. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm being chaotic again. I'll try to keep this in place. Okay, so similarly to what we did on the edge of the wing. Oh, my nail is rough. We're gonna ignore my terrible thumbnail and go through both loops of the edge of this stitch here, like that. Just want to make sure that we've attached this guy down firmly, okay? And now I'm gonna go into the body and then back up kind of through that first hole here. We're gonna tie a little knot. Chaos sewing. Okay, there we go. Tie a little knot, just like that guy. And then I'm gonna go back into his little spot right next to the ear, and then out the back. Gonna trim it down. We're gonna come back here and do the same thing essentially to this tail. Thread it up on our needle, keeping it close to where we want the ear's edge to be so that it tugs our ear down where we want it to be, if that makes, that was a lot of, I feel like I said the same word over and over again, but I hope you understood the meaning of what I was trying to say. Ugh. And then trim this guy down, and as you can see, we've got a bunch of little random tails sticking out of the back of our bat, but again, never fear, we're going to handle it after this in the next step. Okay. Look at that. Bingo. He's got an ear. We're going to do the same thing to this other side, and then I'm going to meet you back here and we'll feed those tails back into the body together. Okay friends, so we've got our bat friend here and he's all finished up on one side. Clear his little eyeballs so that you can see him. Hello! And we've got our tails hanging out here. And what we're going to do to hide them is just grab a random crochet hook and go into the body and then come out in the same spot where this tail is, and then grab it with your crochet hook and then just pull it back inside. Grab it with the crochet hook and pull it inside the body. There it goes. Just wanted to be difficult for you guys. So we'll do that again. And you know, theoretically you could pull this tight and cut it and try to get this to shove back in without, or cut it close to the body. I just don't want to accidentally trim up a bunch of the fur yarn and have some obvious bald spots on our bat. So we're just going to do it this way, going in nearby, grab it with your crochet hook, just being difficult for me today to prove a point, and then shove it down into the body, just like that. And this way we can hide the tails without worrying about trimming up the fur yarn too much and leaving, you know, potential bald spots on the back of our bat. I mean, if that were to happen, it is on the back of your bat, so you don't have to be super concerned. You can be like, oh man, no one's gonna notice. He's a fluffy dude. He's a fluffy guy. No one's gonna notice on his back, right? Okay, our last little tail here. Just pulling that down, shoving it into the body. And there we go. Our little fluffy bat friend. Floofy Bat! Floofy Bat's complete. He's so cute. Look at him. Oh, he's got a friend. Hello. Okay, I'll play with my toys off camera. And you know what? I'll take our bats outside and get you a look at them in the sunshine. Thank you so much for watching this video tutorial. I truly hope you've enjoyed my Floofy Bat crochet pattern. For a written version of this pattern, please visit my blog at www.gracefacecreates.com/blog. If you've enjoyed this pattern, please give the video a like and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any future crochet tutorials or crochet video content. Thanks again for watching and happy crocheting!